So in this day and age, we've got a lot of different ways that we can find something to sample, whether that's downloading a loop from your local musician, downloading something from Splice. But what's the legal way to do it without any of that? Let's just say that you heard a random song and you want to sample it and you want to release it legally. How do we do it legally? What are the licenses that we have to obtain? That's what I'll walk you through in this video. So let's say that you want to sample, I don't know, ABC by the Jackson 5. How do you go about legally obtaining the rights to do so? Well, number one is you need to obtain the master recording license. So the master recording license or the master use license can usually be obtained the owner of the master recording, which in most cases is the record label. And you'll need a master use license if you wish to use any part of the recorded original, so the master. And the second one is an underlying composition license, which can usually be obtained from the copyright owner of the composition, which in most cases is usually the songwriter or the publisher. Now you'll need these licenses if you wish to obviously sample a song commercially and then release it and actually make money from it. Now these two licenses differ greatly from the mechanical license that you need to release a cover version of a song. Now in 2023, obtaining a mechanical license to release a cover version of a song is actually easy as pie. Now if you use a distributor like DistroKid for instance, they can actually obtain a mechanical license for you for a small fee of $12 a year, which is all good in my books. So for releasing cover versions, the whole process is actually quite easy, but for sampling a song, changing it up and obviously making it into something a little bit more original, the process is entirely different. Just because you ask for permission from the record label, the publisher and the songwriter, they do not have to give you it. In fact, they can pretty much make the terms into pretty much anything that they want. 50-50 split, 90% split, you name it. The story's out there. Now the process of how you go about actually trying to obtain both of these licenses is pretty straightforward. It is just a simple fact of contacting the appropriate obviously parties. So for instance the record label, the artist and obviously the publisher. In some cases a lot of those can be the same person. But what about if the artist is a big deal? What about if they're signed? What about if they've got all these people behind them? How do I obviously find out how to contact these people? How do I find out what record label someone's signed to? How do I find out who the publisher is? How do I find out who the songwriter is? How do I do any of these things in order to actually contact them? It's actually pretty easy. There's kind of a step-by-step process that you can actually follow in order to obviously narrow these things down and find contact information. So how do you find the publisher of a composition that you're wanting to sample? The easiest way is to use ASCAP's or BMI's public catalogues. You can obviously look up the song and the name of the publisher should be in there. And once you know who the publisher is, you can try contacting the company directly. Or if the songwriter is the publisher and they self-publish, you can obviously contact them. And if you can't find the publisher via ASCAP's or BMI's public catalogues, the other option is to hire a music lawyer who can go through the sample clearance process for you, or you can actually hire a sample clearance company that is obviously specialised in researching and obviously licensing music. One of the most reputable sample clearance companies that I know of is sampleclearance.com. Just look at their case studies, they've acquired licenses from a lot of different rights holders. So once you've found the publisher, how do you actually go about finding the record label? So there's obviously quite a few ways to identify the recording label that released the project that you're sampling. One, looking on the back of a CD. Do you remember what those are? But a little bit more of a 21st century way is to use a site like allmusic.com. So if you go to the site, type in the name of the album, hopefully you know that by now, or even type in the name of the artist. Go to obviously the album page and you'll be able to find the information from there. Or simply go and Google the name of the album, the artist preceded by record label. Usually that works. So what happens with royalties if your sample request actually gets approved? So usually standard terms are usually something like 50-50, but really there's too many cases in which to define that as an actual sort of variable. Really the splits can vary so sort of much. For instance, I know there's loads of examples out there. You can probably think of a few stories yourself where a songwriter has ended up getting 90% of a cut of a song from someone that's sampled them. So for splits, it really can get as crazy as 90-10, or if the person's fair, hopefully 50-50, maybe even less if they like the song. But generally first, you'll find yourself paying in advance of up to $2,000 to even $5,000 for the use of the rights of the master recording, and then an additional $2,000 to $5,000 for the publishing rights. It can get absolutely crazy. I know it sounds absolutely mental, but these are just general numbers that you see in a lot of different places. Really, those terms can really depend on who you're working with. So what if you can't get in touch with any of these people and clear any of these licenses? Well, the answer is simple: you can't use the song. Many of these record labels just simply don't want to deal with sample requests from small time people, really, because it's not worth the time and it's not worth the money. to do it. If you don't have a big enough audience that they can actually make money from, they just simply won't entertain the request and you'll probably just get ghosted. So let's go over some of the most common sampling myths. Number 1, can I sample copyrighted music without permission if it's less than 6 seconds of audio? Now, one of the biggest myths in sampling is that you can legally sample a song if the length of the sample that you've used is under 6 seconds. Simply not true. It doesn't matter about the length of the sample at all. One of the most famous cases of a case like this is Vanilla Ice's Ice Ice Baby, where he used the bass line of a Queen song called Under Pressure, which was only 3 seconds long. Now, originally neither Queen or David Bowie were actually credited as songwriters on the Vanilla Ice tune. And once the song was released and started to catch a little bit of traction, Freddie Mercury heard it, initiated a lawsuit. The band won, but the percentage that they own is still unknown. Number 2, I changed it. Now, changing the original recording would actually mean remaking the section of the song that you want to use, which is actually known as an interpolation. And that means that you actually wouldn't have to license the original sound recording. However, you would still have to obtain a license for the rights to the composition. Number 3, I'm not making any money off of it. Even if you're not making money from the sample track that you've released, that still doesn't protect you from any copyright infringement, because copyright and fair use laws apply to all instances of the use of copyright material, which by no means can you sample a song if you don't have the correct license. Number 4, it's fair use. Now, simply sampling a song would not qualify you for fair use. Now, to obtain fair use, your use of the sample, aka the music or the lyrics from the song, would need to fall under one of the following categories: parody, criticism, news reporting, research, and education. That's it. Number 5, it's an obscure song. Just because a song might be obscure or the artist might be relatively unknown and they don't really have a large audience, doesn't mean that you can legally take their material and use it. You can't have the attitude of, oh, he'll never hear it. You can't. No matter how big they are, to legally sample their song, you would have to obtain a license, aka a written agreement from them. Now, with all that being said, when it comes to sampling music from major catalogues, you still do have some options in front of you. Number 1 is using a library of pre-cleared samples, which is an alternative route to traditional music licensing. Now, there are a lot of companies out there that operate using this method. One that I know well is signphonics.com, who have got a great reputation and quite a big catalogue of music. So what actually is pre-cleared music or pre-cleared samples? Now, pre-cleared music refers to the rights that are held in the music. Companies actually buy out the rights from composers themselves directly and make it easily accessible to their audience. It's mainly for people that require easy licensing, since they only have to buy one license from one company one time. So what other alternative routes do we have to sampling in 2023? Now, of course, number 1 is you can buy sample packs from a provider like myself, your local musician, and obviously all of our vendors. And then you obviously have different options such as Splice, which obviously has tons of vendors as well. But then obviously more in line with the sort of subject of this video, I suppose, is a service like Tracklib, where you can actually go and legally license old soul songs and R&B songs. Pretty much wherever your mind can wander to, you'll probably find something on Tracklib to suit your tastes. So that's everything from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do like and subscribe. There'll be plenty more coming throughout 2023. All information packed sort of stuff. God knows where the year will take us. I'm aiming to get to 10,000 subscribers this year. So if you could hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, I will love you forever. Thank you. Bye!